Welcome to Container Planning. We first start in the Voyage Data tab. The first thing you'll want to do is load your vessel by using the Load Vessel button in the top left. Search for the vessel by entering the vessel name, call sign or IMO number. You can also do what's called a wildcard search using the percentage sign. The vessel I will be using throughout the video will be the BELLEROPHON 2, which is a test vessel. The next step is to load the voyage by searching for the voyage ID or departure port. The voyage I will be using throughout the video will be the BELL01. As you will see, the full port of rotation and voyage will be displayed within Container Planning, and the details of the port of call, arrival and departure date and times are displayed. So the first option there of start from end, if you would like your voyage to begin with a bay plan from the end port of call from another voyage, then use this tool to select the voyage. Clear call, only click this button if you wish to clear the containers from the bay plan, as this involves deleting data. Discharge current port, this facility will discharge all containers from your current port. Discharge a port, this facility will discharge all your containers at the port of your choice within your current schedule. Discharge by load port, this option will ask if you want to move the containers to discharged or remove them altogether. This facility will discharge all your containers from a stipulated load port. Version control, this allows you to store different versions of the bay plan within your current port, enabling you to refer back to saved bay plans in the future. Pre-sail to next, this creates the arrival condition using your current bay plan for the next port of call in your sailing schedule without actually sailing from your current port. Use this function if you want to plan ahead. Pre-sail to next is very similar. Pre-sail and skip, this creates the arrival condition using the current bay plan for a specific port of call in your sail to next. This button will use your current bay plan and sail to the next port in the sailing schedule, effectively closing your current call. It will be the next port in the sailing schedule sequence, and you will notice that your previous port will have sailed on its identifier in the schedule. Sail and skip, very similar. This facility enables the planner to sail to the port of choice in the sailing schedule if you choose to skip ports in the voyage sequence. We are now in the Import-Export tab. The first option of Import PM Cargo List relates to the importing of PML files. You'll be asked if you wish to select ports to import, yes or no, and then select the PML file to read into the system. Reconcile PM Cargo List essentially compares the details in the system already against an EDI file imported. You'll need to identify weight and if containers are forecast. Export simply means the exporting of a PML file. Import COARI or COPRA files similar to the previous import process. Simply select ports you wish to import and then select the EDI file to read in. Reconcile COPRA compares the details against the EDI file imported. You'll need to identify weight, forecast, and when to receive prompts. Import move-in simply means the process to import a move-ins EDI file. Export move-ins allows the user to view, save, or send the move-ins file directly. Import Bapley allows the user to import a Bapley EDI file, similar to the previous processes, asking about ports to import, then import your Bapley file. Whereby Export Bapley allows the user to view, save file, or send direct to recipient, as Reconcile compares the details of the EDI imported. Fixed Container ID will prompt the user to remove the spaces from container IDs. It will then run through a process of all containers in container planning. Import-export relates to CSV files being imported and exported. You will first need to create an import-export template which the CSV file corresponds to its data points. The next option is in regards to EDI import for hazardous goods and materials, i.e. if you have specific EDI messages relating to hazardous containers. Export is simply the reverse. Stowage options, as the radial options state, this selection is all to do with 30-foot containers and whether they are dealt with as 20-foot or 40-foots within the system, depending on the business needs. We are now in the Bay Selection tab. There are multiple controls here which directly affect the display of the selected bays on the bay plan. For example, the number of bays being shown and between and what bay numbers. The left section corresponds to view 1, whilst the right section corresponds to view 2, which is the dual view. View multi-bays is a tool which enables the user to select specific bays and display them on the bay plan. You can also select or deselect all bays and show whether or not you want to see the linked bays. As the next two controls state, these display all bays for views 1 and 2. In addition, the View Multi-Bay Selection tool is available via the right-click on the bay plan in Container Planning. We are now within the Actions tab. The controls here correspond to the differing modes within Container Planning. The left set of options relate to View 1, and the secondary relates to View 2, which is for the dual view. The controls will automatically change the mode and will display the list which is used for that mode. For example, load mode will display the loading list, discharge mode will display the remain on board list. You have the ability to select singular containers by simply clicking on them in the relevant mode, or you can multi-select by using the drag and drop functionality in Container Planning. As you can see, I am just demonstrating the differing modes by clicking on the appropriate option in the top left. You will always be able to see what mode you're currently in by viewing the coloured bar, which is just below the port rotation. The second set of controls all correspond to break bulk modes in container planning. It has the same functionality as the previous controls, whereby it will automatically set the user into a specific mode and display the related list for break bulk. There are modes available via the right-click option, which can be selected from there instead of using the Actions tab. We are now within the Tools tab. The first control of Add Containers to Loading List will allow you to add a singular or multiple containers to the loading list. The container details will automatically appear with netBext or forecast container numbers if the container ID is unknown. You can change these from forecast to the actual container IDs at any time. Enter all relevant container details here, and to add multiple, simply adjust the number next to the Add button at the bottom. Update containers will bring up a window which will allow the user to update all containers from a previous value to a new one for the fields displayed in the Update Container Information window. It will also change the mode in container planning to Update Container mode. Add break bulk works in a similar sort of way to adding containers to the loading list. The break bulk item window will appear and you will simply enter the relevant details. View void slots will display all slots in a list with their details which have been identified as void. You can enter void slots mode via the right-click option to create void slots using a single or multi-select. Similarly to the void slots, there is an option to view reserve slots, which displays a window that highlights any and all reserve slot information. You can also access the reserve slots via the right click. Auto Restow will run an automatic check to see if containers require restowing. It will display if containers have been automatically restowed, or will display if there are no boxes to restow if it isn't required. Tooltips correspond to the mouse over information displayed within the BEI plan, i.e. it displays things like container ID, storage position, ISO, etc. These can be turned off by unselecting the tooltip view. View 1 and View 2 relate to View 1 as a standard and View 2 being dual view. Clear all logs will remove all information stored within the warning, error, and reconcile logs. We are now in the Options tab. The first control in the top left is Gravity Mode. Now, Gravity Mode will take into account gravity and where the containers are loaded, i.e. if you have floating containers in the bay plan. Drag and Drop Mode will change the mode to Load Mode, which automatically navigates to the loading list, and you will have the ability to load containers from here. You can use the drag and drop mode for single containers or the multi-select. As you'll see, I'm demonstrating some multi-select. You'll see the green box there. The next three controls, the first one being Show Weight Remaining Percentage, will display the weight percentage remaining. Use GL rules will use the GL rules, standards and guidelines automatically. The remaining weight will display remaining weight when switched on rather than total weight. These can just be turned on or off as per the user's preference. The tier weight radial buttons correspond to the individual tier weights in the bay plan. You can select average or total from the radial selection. The radial selections correspond to the way the containers are actually loaded and slotted onto the vessel. You can select an appropriate option here. The check discharge will place a check on all containers also being discharged. Expert mode will display a full set of controls throughout container planning, whereby if you turn it off, it will engage simple mode, which as you can see reduces the amount of tabs and controls displayed in container planning. Essentially, you go from 15 tabs in Expert to 9 tabs in Simple, and obviously less controls are available to the user. We are now within the View Options tab. You will see a number of controls in the top left corresponding to viewing options displayed for the vessel on the bay plan. You have the ability to turn these options on or off depending on how you wish to view the vessel and the data within container planning. As you will see, you simply click the option depending on what you wish to view and the bay plan is updated accordingly. It's worth mentioning that every display altered here will have an impact on the prints later on, but we will cover that later. We are now within View Filters tab. There are a variety of viewing filters available which directly alter the viewing of the containers on the bay plan. These can be turned on or off depending on user preference and what prints are required. The first 9 options all correspond to Show Specials control. In order to see the controls on the bay plan, you will need to click the Show Specials control and choose the relevant viewing filters. As you will see on screen, the bay plan is updated accordingly to the selected filters. To remove these filters, click Show Specials and the bay plan will change back to its previous state. The next 4 options relate to the lists and the containers within them. For example, I'm using Remain on Board containers, and if you unselect Remain on Board, the containers will turn black and all other containers in the lists will still appear. The show status will display a small circle in the top right of each container on the bay plan. This highlights its status, i.e. whether it's loaded, discharged, restow, or remain on board. The next three controls allow the user to filter by loaded, restow, or remain on board lists. Just select the appropriate option. The final three options correspond to verified gross mass status of the containers. The VGM data will be displayed within the container details or lists at the bottom as shown. VGM only will display all containers with verified weight, and all non-VGM containers will be displayed as black on the bay plan. The hide VGM will do the opposite, whereby it will display all non-verified containers. We are now within the View Vessel tab. You will see a number of buttons in the top left corresponding to viewing options displayed for the vessel on the bay plan. You have the ability to turn these options on or off depending on how you wish to view the vessel within container planning. As you will see, you simply click the option depending on what you wish to view. In this example, I have selected to show the port and starboard sides of the vessel along with the hatch lids. We are now within the List Filters tab. Filter all lists enables a user to filter all lists with the same value in the same column. In this example, I will be filtering by all 20-foot containers. As you can see, this filter has been applied to all lists when using this control. The clear grid filters will simply remove any and all filters on the lists. Copy grid layout allows the user to copy the column arrangement and order, and if any columns have been removed or added, this will be applied and these changes will be saved to all the other lists within container planning. So as you'll see, I have removed and rearranged some columns, and now we're just confirming the copy. As you'll see, all the lists will be identical. The radial selection simply displays the type of containers. By default, it is set to all. However, the user can select to show forecast or planned containers, and these will be reflected within the lists. We are now within the Displays tab. The first option of Toggle Dual View will enable the secondary viewing window within container planning. Flip Dual will change the second viewing window from a vertical to horizontal depending on user preference, as you will see from the example here. You can also adjust the lists at the bottom depending on how big you want those. Flip List will move the lists from the bottom of the screen and place them along the right hand side, again depending on user preference. As you'll see from the example here, I'm just rearranging and resizing. Mirror view works alongside dual view. It essentially mirrors view 1 into view 2. So you'll need to toggle dual view in order to use mirror views. Show or hide gauges will display various gauges along the right hand side, as you'll see. Show or hide schedule will display the calendar view of the voyage rather than the default view, whereas it shows the port rotations in their order. So as you'll see, you can see the date values along a calendar there at the top. The first set of controls allows the user to select 2D or 3D views on the bay plan by simply selecting the relevant option from the radial buttons. So as you can see, I'm just playing around with the 3D view here. So viewing mode corresponding to the mode selected in container planning. So essentially this is for viewing purposes only. Toggle scroll displays the bays horizontal rather than vertical. Then lastly, the second set of controls corresponds to a secondary view if you're using one in container planning. So basically you can select view 1 as 2D and view 2 as 3D, just as an example. We are now within the Checks tab. There are a variety of checks within this tab, all of which are fairly self-explanatory according to the control labels themselves. For example, there are checks corresponding to stack height, weight, and container size, which are the first 3 options in the top left. These checks can simply be turned on or off depending on which checks the individual is concerned with, and this can be done at any time when within container planning. We are now within the Check Tools tab. The Select All control turns on all checks within the Check tab, which we have covered previously. Real-time check completes these checks in real time and will display anything which crops up. Fade error pop-ups simply mean they fade error pop-ups. Pop-up errors and warnings will display any error or warning rather than just adding it to the relevant logs. Check all bays runs an overall check on all bays. To carry out the check, click Proceed on the pop-up. This will run the check and any errors or warnings will be displayed or added to the logs. Use the multi-bays tool to select specific bays before using the run checks on selected bays. All errors and warnings will be displayed or added to the logs. Perform full hazardous analysis will check all hazardous materials on the vessel. The report will be generated within the Hazard Report tab in Container Planning. Full breakdown and details will be displayed here. Check Container ID will check all container IDs are valid. You can either go through each container error one by selecting Continue in the pop-up, or you can just view an overview by clicking Summary, which displays the number of errors found in regard to container IDs, and they will all be added to the error log. Check out of gauge voids will display all in a summary window when clicked. You have the ability to unload problem containers out of gauge or voids by selecting the containers from the list. We are now in the Print tab. To start the print process, select the number of bays per page from the drop-down field and click Bay Summary to start the print process. The user has the ability to select a printer or print a PDF in this example, so that'll store the print directly as a local PDF file. Which is why we're able to see it on screen now. The printing within container planning takes the design and style directly from the Bay plan. So however the display looks and the view controls turned on is how the print will look when produced. As you will see from the second example, the display is differing from the first PDF produced, as I have altered the display and the view settings. One letter plan simply displays one letter for each port of call, depending on the port of discharge. Similarly to the previous print, whatever is displayed on the Bay plan will be on the print. It's recommended that you use the display save functionality to save a one-letter plan style. The one-letter plan values are stored within the port code submodule along the left-hand side. These can be changed at any time depending on your individual needs. To print the one-letter plan, select the number of bays per page and click Bay Summary. The 2 and 4 letter plans will work in a similar sort of way, however you can't change the values of these. Just click one of the controls, either the 2 or the 4 letter plan, and the Bay plan will update accordingly, as you can see on screen. We are now within the Search tab. You have the ability to search directly for a container of interest using the Container ID field. Simply enter the container ID into the relevant field in the top left, click Enter or the ellipsis button, and the Find Container window will appear. This window will display all containers with a matching ID. Select the relevant container from the list and click OK. The container details will now be displayed on screen in a window where you'll see all the specific details stored within BELLEROPHON. Also, the system will automatically display where the container is located on the Bay plan. You can access the container details by simply double-clicking the container on the bay plan. The Find Duplicates button will highlight any duplicate containers with the same container ID. This window will display the container ID and the numbers of containers found with matching IDs. The Display Save control is located within the top right of Container Planning as a ribbon control. Simply click the Display Save option and the controls will appear. The display which is saved will take all of the display and view settings within Container Planning. So as you will see from the example here, I turn on and off some of the view option controls which directly affect the display on screen. Once you are happy with the display settings, simply click Save Display in the top right and assign the display an appropriate name. The system will now save all display settings. This includes changes made to the lists and columns, whether or not that's removed, added, or adjusted the columns for the individual's preference. The display will be saved within the User drop-down field along with any other displays which have been saved. Simply select the display which you want and the system will update accordingly. In this example, I have two separate displays to represent how the system changes.